Hello and welcome back to Kindled. I'm your host, Haley. So today I have part two of my conversation with Laura Zifer about Islam. And if you have not heard part one, I'd encourage you to go back and listen to that before listening to this episode, or at least afterwards. It provides a really good understanding and foundation for their beliefs. And then today in this episode, we're talking about the current events around what we've seen in the news, the headlines with Mamdani and otherwise, and also kind of a Christian response to Islam and how do we move forward? What is our hope in? And how can we actually reach these people whom need the gospel desperately? And as always, I'd love to remind you to leave a rating and review if you like this podcast, and come find me on Instagram at haley.kindled. This episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors, Unsifted, Foundation Worldview, and We Heart Nutrition. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Laura Zifer.
Mamdani, I would venture to say, knows that that he's a piece of the puzzle working toward gaining more power and influence and setting up the next generation or the generation after that to fully conquer America and make it a fully Islamic country directed by Sharia, as opposed to the U.S. Constitution, which is absolutely incompatible with Islam.
Right.
Absolutely incompatible.
Right. So talk about that political strategy. You mentioned that the strategy is to kind of get in, lie as long as you are the underdog, as long as you do not have kind of authority and power, then lie, say what you have to say to get in, to take over territory. And as you grow your kingdom, in a sense, you get more and more power to then make things the way you want. And I think we see, I think I saw the other day, there's like 40 some elected officials in the United States that are Muslims. So, I mean, they're slowly but surely getting elected as mayor or governor or whatever. Maybe not governor at this point, but I have no doubt that's soon to come if it hasn't already.
Yeah, exactly. And we can look at England as well, for example. I mean, 9 of the 10 big cities in Britain they now have Muslim mayors. 90% of the population is not Muslim, but 9 out of 10 mayors of major cities are Muslim. This is very strategic, and it's coming to America, and we have the responsibility to end it. Yeah, like I said, the strategy is basically kind of three-pronged. It starts with claiming to be a religion of peace, claiming to want tolerance and equality, bring as many Muslims here as possible, have as many Muslim babies as possible, get Muslims elected to office, build up your resources, and then eventually conquer the nation for Islam. With the middle stage being, smaller attacks in between there. And so we are fortunate to be in stage 1 in the United States. We do see sporadic suicide bombing attacks and things like that. But Muslims are still a small minority. If they were to go on the attack right now and try to take over the U.S., they'd probably be captured and punished immediately and and kicked out of the country. And all Muslims might be banned from the U.S., depending on how politically correct we were and all of that. And so it would hinder any hopes of conquest. Yeah. Whereas if they preach peace, play the victim, preach tolerance, get people elected, build up their numbers and their power kind of covertly, then they hope to be in a better place in the next generation and a better place in the next generation to take over. And given how few babies we're having in the West and how many babies Muslims are having, and how even when Christians are having babies, they're largely being educated by the left and being radicalized into leftist ideology and rejecting Christianity. Yeah. Muslims are going the other extreme and, saying if you leave Islam, you will die. And so they're retaining they pray a prayer over their babies when they're 8 years old and claim them for Islam. And so if they leave Islam at any time, uh, they are they have they they have walked away from the faith, and they are supposed to be killed. And
Mm.
so uh, that
Even as, like, say, a 9-year-old, if at that
mhm,
point.
yes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's also a culture of, not doing a whole lot of thinking for yourself, and the most important thing being fitting in with
Mhm,
the group.
mhm,
We have, I would say, a hyper individualized culture in the US right now. Islamic cultures tend to be the other end of the extreme. The most important quality for being a good person is to fit in with everybody else. Don't question anything. Don't doubt
mhm,
anything. Do what is handed down to you without any individual thought and
mhm,
that sort of thing. And so, between that culture and the threats and everything else, people are slow to leave Islam even when they realize it's not true.
mm,
So I think some other things that we're going to be seeing in the U.S. probably in the near future is demands for Sharia courts,
mhm,
for worship over loudspeakers in big
mhm.
cities. I know that's
Sure, we've
already
already
the
got
case
that. Yeah.
in Dearborn, and yeah, it's been at work in a few other cities.
Epic
Um,
Epic City in Dallas or outside of Dallas.
right,
Yeah.
right, exactly, yeah.
Which for anyone
Um,
listening, can you tell them just really briefly what that is? Because that's probably a little bit of a template for us to see what are they going to start doing in other cities.
yeah, well, and I think that I think that Texas has rejected it. I think the governor has said no, and the city of Dallas wisely has said no.
I think they
Um,
said, well, I could be wrong. I thought that they said it couldn't be restricted to Muslims only, but it could still
okay,
be built. So then it's like,
okay, okay.
oh, so really any
That's
religion's allowed, but actually it's who's gonna wanna go live there besides Muslims? I mean, I could be wrong, but that was the
okay.
latest thing I saw was that it
Yeah.
couldn't be exclusive based on religion.
Okay, so that's bad news. So
Mhm.
that is bad news.
We'll have to
Because
double check that.
so
Um,
yeah, so they will be before long. They will be demanding their own. They bought. They want to build this basically this big like Muslim community with um and they will be soon enough demanding worship over
mhm,
loudspeakers, which is just as ugly and painful and disruptive as you can
mhm,
imagine. 5 times a day, this what sounds to me like this demonic yelling, crying, screeching over loudspeakers um to Allah. It's that's what's going on in Dearborn. That's the goal for Dallas. There's they will demand halal foods in every restaurant, which are halal means basically legal, good, allowed, permitted, but it's food that was meat that is slaughtered in the name of Allah. So it's food sacrificed to idols, and um, uh, yes, we are free, but to have um, at the same time to to have demonic services to kill animals in the name of this demonic
mhm,
god like figure, spiritual demon, is not what we want for our country. um
mhm,
the they'll be demanding um Islam be taught in the schools and things like that. The books, by the way, already, when kids learn about different world religions, they're already completely false. They've been totally whitewashed to make Islam look wonderful. They're absolutely unreliable.
mhm,
Um, so kids are learning, it's this great, wonderful world religion, and Christianity is this hateful, bigoted, uh, evil religion in our
mhm,
public schools in America. And the goal of course is to spread and spread and spread. And by the way, I don't use the term demonic or demon loosely just to mean something I don't like, or just anything that disagrees with Christianity.
mhm,
Muhammad himself believed and said, and this is from the Islamic sources, not some Christian commentary on it, but the Islamic sources themselves. Muhammad believed that when he was praying in the cave, of Hira, that he was visited by a demon who threw him up against the cave wall over and over, demanding that he read. And he kept saying, I don't know how to read. And he was scared, and he eventually the was able to leave. The demon left, or Muhammad walked away, or whatever. It's not specific. But anyway, as Muhammad was going back home, his neck muscles were twitching. He was terrified. He was a 40-year-old man approximately. And when he got to his house, he hid under the sheets and told his wife that he was demon possessed. And his wife said, no, you're a good man. There's no way you're demon possessed. Maybe you were visited by an angel. Maybe you're the next great prophet of Christianity. You needed to talk to my uncle. He knows a lot about this. And so she took, Khadija was her name. She took Muhammad to talk to her uncle. And they tried to convince him that he was visited by an angel and that he was this next great prophet. And he was like, that's ridiculous. No, I was there. This was not an angel. And so he decided he was going to end his own life. So he started walking up a mountain to throw himself off of it. And this same spiritual being that he knew was a demon approached him and said, hey, so I am an angel. I'm the angel Gabriel, and you are the next great prophet. Khadija was right, and her uncle, they were right. And Muhammad still was not buying it. He was talked down from the mountain that time, but then he went up to kill himself multiple times after that. Eventually, he embraced this role as prophet. It had a lot of personal benefits for him, but he knew that he was visited by a demon. And so this is not just something that I'm making up or even necessarily observing myself, although I have observed it in many Islamic countries, but something that Muhammad himself said is that this is demonic.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And so you mentioned a little bit ago, you said we are responsible to stop this advance of Islam and this takeover, this conquest of our nation. And so talk about that. How do you see that happening, and what would be your encouragement and kind of your admonition to Christians who are listening, who are going, I see this, I hate it. I don't want this to happen to my country. What can we do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we need to keep the border secure. That is absolutely critical. We cannot buy into all this, oh, you're racist if you don't have an open border, if you don't just let anybody walk over the border. That's ridiculous. There were approximately 400 known Muslim terrorists who crossed over the U.S. border under the Biden administration. And there's still, last I read, at least 50 of them whose whereabouts are unknown. And so to open the borders to try to be not racist or whatever is ridiculous. We need borders, just like every other country in the world has borders. And we need to revise our immigration system to be one that people who want to embrace our founding documents and our values have priority to come here. People who have a clear and obvious desire to assimilate need to have priority here. And I think people with skills as well. People with skills, or people who's like Christians whose lives are in danger, which is in a great deal of the world. Christianity is the most persecuted religion in the world. Christians are the most persecuted peoples. And so even if we're just doing it by the numbers, let's bring persecuted Christians here. Let's bring skilled immigrants who want to live according to our Constitution here. And we need to recognize Islam for what it is and write to our representatives, maybe run for office, and make it clear that we do not have to accept an ideology that says kill people who disagree with you and take over their government. That's insane. No, no, Muslims don't put up with that in their countries. There's no reason for us to put up with that. Nobody puts up with that who has any sanity. And so we also need for immigrants, we need a significant amount of training in and I would say in the schools, in Christian schools, we need to get those books thrown out that teach that Islam is wonderful and all of that, and don't actually tell the truth about Muhammad's life and about what the Quran says and how Muslims are to live. But I think that this is going to be really controversial, but Italy recently banned. They haven't banned it yet. The prime minister, the prime minister proposed a bill to ban burqas and religions that have money coming from terrorist organizations and some things like that. I think that we ought to do the same thing. The people are going to say, oh, but it's part of their religion. Well, first of all, I've been told all over the world by women whose dads or husbands allow them to wear just like a head covering over their hair and not the full burqa, that every Muslim on earth knows that no woman actually wants to be wearing that horrific outfit. I've tried on a burqa. It's hard to breathe. It's terrifying. It's suffocating. Women get hit, run over by cars in the Muslim majority world all the time because there's very little, if any, peripheral vision with those things on. It's a security issue both for the Muslim women and for society around them. I mean, we don't allow men to walk around with these black masks over their faces with just the eyes and the nose and mouth cut out, right? So why allow that for women? It's common sense tells us that's a security issue. And so I don't think women want to be wearing these in the first place, but their husband has control over what they wear. Their father has control over what they wear. And if Muslims want to continue acting like Muslims and practicing Islam, they ought to be requesting to go into any other Muslim country. There are Muslim countries all throughout the world. We don't have to take Muslims. Especially when it's incompatible with our U.S. Constitution. And so I think, people need to be informed. They need to be sharing this, sharing it on social media, sharing it with their friends, risking not being popular because they're not all super tolerant or whatever, tolerant of people who have a plan to kill them. And recognize, that there are numerous features of our founding documents that are incompatible with Islam, religious freedom, the Establishment Clause, because Islam calls for a worldwide caliphate. They will seek to establish that religion wherever they go. There's no equality, like inherent human dignity, value, and worth, or human rights. That is a Judeo-Christian ethic that is not found in Islam. Although some Greek thinkers had some ideas related to that. They couldn't justify it. They couldn't ground it, but they believed that people probably had some degree of worth and value. No individual rights. A Republican government, a political pluralism. If you value tolerance and such, that's not going to be allowed very long as soon as Islam takes over and all of that. Freedom of speech, freedom of conscience. So people just need to be aware and sharing it in wherever they are. If you're a school teacher, share it there. If you work in business, share it there. If you homeschool your children, make sure they know the truth. If you share podcasts with your friends, make sure you share this or any number of others. The information is now available to us in a way it has not been up until the last 10 to 20 years, because these Islamic sources are finally being translated into English. And so we are now getting an idea of why Islam has been a violent disaster for that spreads evil like cancer everywhere, pretty much everywhere it's gone, certainly everywhere it's been taken seriously for the past 1400 years.
Yes.
So George Washington and John Adams used to pay off Muslims not to attack American ships in the seas because that was just a regular practice of Muslims, was to attack Americans, kill them, take their stuff, or convert them to Islam. So our first president, second president were paying them. Third president went to war against them. And now today we're like, suddenly
we're electing them.
We're electing them. Yeah.
The next sponsor I want to share with you is We Heart Nutrition. We Heart Nutrition is a pro-life, family-owned supplement company that makes premium, research-backed supplements for men and women at every life stage, from preconception to pregnancy, postpartum, menopause, and beyond. Every product is crafted with the most bioavailable forms of nutrients so you actually feel the difference. There are no watered-down formulas, no unnecessary fillers, just wholesome, effective ingredients. Plus, they give 10% of every purchase to pregnancy resource centers to support moms and babies. I want to share with you something that someone asked me recently on Instagram was, girl, how do you not have postpartum hair loss after having your baby a year ago? I have not noticed your hair looking thin the way that it typically does. And I will tell you, I did lose a little bit of hair because obviously there's a huge hormonal dip after you have a baby. The biggest one a woman ever experiences, you're going to lose some hair. But this was the least amount of hair that I've ever lost in all 4 of my pregnancies. And I believe it's because I was taking throughout my pregnancy the We Heart Nutrition prenatals. And then after pregnancy, I transitioned immediately into the postnatal, which supports your body and really just gave me everything I needed as I was breastfeeding, getting less sleep. Nutrition is spotty in those early months, weeks, days. I am going to credit We Heart Nutrition because it's really the only thing that's different compared to my other pregnancies. I'm 5 years older than my last one. And so I have just seen the difference in my own health, my energy levels, and really I went in recently and had labs drawn, and all of my levels were great. Thyroid was fine, which I've had issues with that in the past. Everything was perfect, except my B was really high. Do you know why it was high? It's because I wasn't taking a We Heart Nutrition B. I was taking some other brand, and it's not bioavailable. So it was just building up in my system. And they told me, you got to stop taking the B. Like, that's what's giving you these headaches. High or low vitamin B can lead to that. I stopped and the headaches have gone away. So that's just proof that the vitamins you take, the supplements you take, the quality matters so much. So go to weheartnutrition.com. Use code Kindled20 for 20% off your first order. Support your health and a family-owned company that supports life. Again, go to weheartnutrition.com and use code Kindled20 for 20% off. Let me pause and tell you about one of my favorite sponsors, and that is Unsifted. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen me using their products in my baking and cooking. But this is fresh milled flour. Now, before you think that's just too crunchy or way over your head, I promise you it's not. If I can do it, you can do it. I have been using fresh milled flour for almost a year now, and I absolutely love having this as a tool in my family's health arsenal. And here's why. Because unsifted fresh milled flour has 40 out of the 44 key essential nutrients and active enzymes that our bodies need to properly digest gluten and even function on a daily basis. So you have heard that gluten is the bad guy in the bread, right? But it's actually not. It is the processing of the flour that makes the gluten difficult for our bodies to handle. But fresh milled flour contains all of the enzymes that are needed to process and digest the gluten properly. It's almost like the way that God made grain. It was actually intentional. But the Unsifted starter kit is the ultimate easy button for fresh flour baking, and it has everything you need: the high quality grain blends, easy to follow recipe cards, and the Wonder Mill, a super fast mill giving you a high quality flour in seconds. Go to unsifted.com to order your Unsifted starter kit today. Use code Kindled10 for $10 off your first order of $100 or more. That's code Kindled10 at unsifted.com. Let me take a second to interrupt this episode and tell you about another one of our amazing sponsors, and that is Foundation Worldview. The world is filled with messages that challenge biblical truth. Foundation Worldview curriculums help parents equip their kids to think biblically so they can stand firm in their faith. Whether it's messages from friends, media, or culture, kids are constantly exposed to ideas that contradict Scripture. Foundation Worldview teaches them how to recognize and respond to these ideas with confidence. The best part is, no theology degree is required. Foundation Worldview curriculums use engaging video lessons and age-appropriate activities to make learning both effective and easy for families. Whether you have a preschooler, an elementary student, or a preteen, Foundation Worldview has a curriculum designed for their developmental stage, covering biblical thinking, Bible literacy, and God's good design for sexuality. Now, if you follow me on Instagram at Haley.Kindled, you have seen me share about this curriculum before in our homeschool. I use it with my own girls, and I absolutely love this curriculum. And my favorite part is just the rich conversations that come out of the lessons when we do them together, and they are often a starting point for really bigger, deeper conversations that we have because of the curriculum. And I just love sharing about it because I know so many moms need a framework. They need help knowing how to address these big topics, where to begin, and they want to make sure that it's like at a level that their kids understand, while also challenging them to really take everything back to Scripture and teaching them how to do that from a very young age. So don't wait to build a solid biblical foundation in your kids' lives. Use the code Kindled10 to get $10 off a family license of any full Foundation Worldview curriculum. That is Kindled10 to get $10 off at foundationworldview.com. Yeah, wokeism is a cancer.
Yes.
You said that, Italy's plan to make the burqa illegal was controversial. That, first of all, that won't be controversial with my audience. They'll probably love that idea and think that's genius. So is that really more of a plan to seek to kind of disprivilege, for lack of a better word, Muslims without saying, hey, you can't be Muslim and live here because they can't control belief, but they can control outward expression of religion, right? So is that kind of the thinking there? Like, we can't stop you from believing something, but we can stop you from expressing that in a certain way, and that's then going to limit your desire to want to be in this place.
Exactly, right. It's an attempt to control it without trying to control freedom of thought, of conscience. Exactly.
Right. Well, and like you said, our Constitution, if you've ever studied it, you know that we have the protections for freedom of religion, and that is obviously born out of our founding fathers, where they came from and the fact that they were escaping religious persecution. So that was a huge function and driver for them in developing the Bill of Rights and the Constitution as it stands today, and what we understand it is to be an American. But like we've just got done talking about, the people who are coming here and saying, oh yeah, we're on board, we want to be here too, they're not assimilating. They don't have a desire to assimilate. They don't have a desire to live under our system. They don't respect it. They don't believe in it. They are subverting it. They are seeking to get in and then turn it on its head. And they're using our very own Constitution to do so because of the freedom of religion, which protects their right to believe whatever they believe insofar as it doesn't infringe on someone else. But the problem is that their religion fundamentally believes in infringing on someone else's rights.
Right. That's
so
exactly
it's fundamentally incompatible, because I just feel like our founding fathers, they were super smart, but they also probably couldn't have seen how far this country would have fallen in the future. As much as they were creating checks and balances, as much as I think they were geniuses and way smarter than the average person today, it's like, you didn't see how bad it was going to get, social media, and they couldn't have imagined, what's
and hop on a plane to get on the other side of the world. And then America flies in and Muslims and opens the borders and almost half of the populace is saying yay for such for this kind of diversity of worldview to include it, so that we approve of a worldview that wants to
Yes,
obliterate
destroy
us.
us.
Yeah, I don't think they saw that one coming.
No, I don't think so. And so then you have to really ask, like, is this what they would believe in? Would they believe
Mhm,
in we have a responsibility to open ourselves up to an active foreign invader in the
mhm,
name of being quote unquote anti-racist or an ally or of being woke or being
mhm,
like loving like Jesus, and distorting the teachings of Jesus to mean that we must put our children at risk and the future
mhm,
generation at risk of dying by their hand or being raped. I mean,
mhm,
this is
right.
what they believe in, and this is what
Mhm,
they, after the Jew, we are the next target. We are,
mhm,
the
yeah,
Christians are infidels, and so
right.
I was blown away. I don't know if you saw actually in back to New York City, Zoran Mamdani. There is a group of Jews in New York wearing Jews for Zorian t-shirts. And I was like, I literally cannot with this. Like,
Yeah,
you've got to be kidding me. But
just wow.
they're so blinded by their desire to be seen as virtuous
Yeah,
and loving and
right.
accepting of all religions. And look, oh, he's been so misunderstood. And oh, he wants to live at peace. And he's charismatic. He's good looking, all these
Mhm,
things.
yeah,
And you've got Jews wearing his t-shirt and they've got to
mhm,
be truly laughing
yeah,
in their homes. They got to be laughing at us like,
yes,
you idiots. You
yeah,
look at what fools we've made of you. Look at it.
right. Exactly. Yep, great point. Yeah, and I'll say this, because I know, we kind of we like to be liked, and we don't like to rock the boat and all of this. But if we don't stop Islam from infiltrating America and infiltrating our government, our educational institutions, our media, our places of worship, if we don't stop that now, this country will be absolutely unrecognizable in a couple of generations.
Yeah.
We have the risk for us right now to speak out and try to take these actions is that someone
So
may not
small.
like us. They might
Right.
not approve of us. They might call
Right.
us a name like
Mhm.
racist or whatever.
Mhm.
If we don't,
Check. Getting
if,
called that
yeah,
already.
there you go. Me too. Same thing. Right. So if we are not willing to risk our reputations to
Yeah.
speak the truth, our grandchildren will never know the
Mhm.
freedom of speech or thought that we have taken for granted. They will not have the opportunities to hear the gospel. They will
Mm.
not. Our granddaughters will not be valued. They will not be protected. They will not be free. Our grandsons will live under a regime that makes them either into monsters or lambs for the slaughter.
Mhm.
Those are the options. They will speak the truth at the cost of their lives if we are not willing to speak the truth at the cost of our reputations.
Mhm. Man, it's so true. Do you ever feel like you're screaming into the void though?
Sometimes, although I'll tell you, less and less over the past month or so. I don't know
Mhm.
what's happened, but
Uh-huh.
um, I had,
Well, we've
yeah,
almost got a New York mayor that's a Muslim, so I think
yeah,
that's what's happened
yeah. I've
is
been
people
talking.
waking up.
Yeah, I've been talking about Islam for years. I've been talking about socialism for years and why that's
Huge.
not biblical, why Jesus was not a socialist and things like that. And I have been told over and over and over, well, Islam is so niche, nobody cares, and oh,
Mhm.
nobody is actually a socialist in the United States. Come on.
Mm.
And in the past few weeks, like the past month or so, I my inbox is inundated with requests to talk about Islam and socialism, and so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think you're right. I think Zoran Mamdani has a lot to do with that. People are
Yeah.
going, wait a minute, I'm one of those people who said Muslims don't want to take over. I'm one of those people who said
Mhm.
that socialists have no chance. And now, yeah, look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up, I know we could talk about this for hours and hours, but
yeah,
to be respectful of your time, a couple questions left for you that
sure.
listeners or followers on Instagram sent in.
Hmm. Yeah.
Somebody had the practical question of, my neighbor is a Muslim. How do I engage, right? Like as a Christian, as a believer,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing like I'm called to share the gospel. I'm called to be salt to
Hmm.
the culture, to the world around me, a city on a hill.
Hmm.
Uh and yet I'm recognizing everything they believe in stands diametrically opposed to what I believe in, and what if
Hmm.
they wanna kill me and my family? Like, how do I reconcile those things as
Mhm,
we're dealing with this really infiltration from the inside out now, where you've got
mhm,
people with lots of, neighbors and surrounding people, and I mean, just for
mhm,
me, there's a mosque right down the street from me, a huge one.
mhm. Yeah.
And so what would your encouragement be to those people?
Well, fortunately, right now, we still do have some semblance of rule of law. I'm not gonna say, it's great. It's not. I've been really discouraged lately at how for the past, well, you know, at least 6 years, how criminals are regularly let out,
Mhm,
with, days in prison after killing people, things like
mhm,
that. But, um, I would say it's important that we share truth with them, with anybody and everybody we have an opportunity to share with, while we do have the rule of law
uh-huh,
largely protecting us. Um, it is not likely in this stage with the percentage of Muslims being as low as it is currently,
uh-huh,
as far as we know in the U.S. It's probably a lot higher than studies reveal, but right now we can share the gospel freely in the United States for the most part
uh-huh,
and not pay with our lives. And we need to make the most of every opportunity. If we're afraid of losing our free speech, it needs to be because we are using our free speech and we actually don't want to lose something that we're utilizing it. If we care about free speech, we need to utilize it right now. This is the
mhm,
time.
mhm,
And so I have lots of recommendations for how to share with people and what kind of questions to ask and things like that. A lot of them come up in the Islam Foundations course that I mentioned
mhm,
through Women in Apologetics. I've spoken on them and written on them for my blog at
okay,
laurazee.org. So um, it, yeah, it's there are ways to share and even just start a conversation that by asking questions
mhm,
that are, I think, really useful and valuable and effective. And I also think it's important though to remember that when you invite a Muslim to consider following Jesus, becoming a Christian, you're not asking them to go to a church on Sunday instead of a mosque on Friday. That's not what
mhm,
is at stake here. You're asking them to basically become a worldwide target for death as someone who has left Islam, who is now to be killed. You're asking them to be rejected by their entire family, have all of their connections
mhm,
dissolved, and to count on you and your church, your family, to become their family in its place. So if it is not as simple as just saying, I'm going to share the gospel, they're going to see how great it is, and they're going to just leave everything right now. That has been the case at times, usually because of dreams and visions given
mhm.
directly by God that I've heard about all over the world. It's really cool what God's
Yeah,
doing
I've heard that
among
too.
Muslims. But we have to make the most of the opportunity. You're not likely going to be killed right now in the United States
Right.
for sharing the gospel, sharing the truth, asking questions to a
Mhm,
Muslim. In fact, I'll tell you this: one of the reasons I like hanging out with Muslims is that they are far more comfortable talking about spiritual things and political things than most Americans are. We've largely been taught you don't talk about religion and politics in polite company or whatever, at the dinner table and things like that, or with people you don't know well. Muslims, especially when they've been raised overseas, don't tend to have that ridiculous mentality.
mm,
They consider it like, oh, well, if we're real friends, obviously we're going to be talking about those things. That's what
yeah,
people talk about is religion and politics, if they have any depth to them at all.
mhm,
And so I found it quite easy to get into conversations. But I do recommend, thinking about some different approaches, like I mentioned, like Allah being a deceiver, by not by bringing that up immediately, but by asking, do you think Jesus was crucified? Oh, why not? Oh, what do you think happened? Oh, who made it appear as if he was crucified? Oh, wow. So Allah is a really great deceiver, huh? Things like that.
mm, yeah, yeah,
The fact that the Quran affirms the Gospels as God inspired, perfectly
mhm,
preserved, and ongoing authoritative documents from God, message from God, revelations from God. Um, that's going to make it really hard for a Muslim to reject Christianity
Mhm.
in
They
a
have to
conversation.
selectively choose what part was he
Yeah.
being deceptive about, right.
So, right. Yeah, exactly. And so, there are various approaches that I think are really effective for getting people to think.
Mhm.
I say pray with them, but absolutely
Yeah.
make the most of every opportunity, trusting that our hope is actually ultimately
Yeah.
in the Lord, in the next life as well.
Mhm.
I've spent time in Afghanistan, Egypt, Jordan, Burundi, India, countries like that, not because I don't value my life, but because I know what is yet to come if I lose my if I lose my life here, when I lose my life here.
Yeah. Uh Along with that, man, I had a question for you. Hold on. What was I gonna ask you? Oh, yeah, so the visions and dreams,
Yeah.
um, that seems to be unique or at least pronounced, with
hmm
Muslim conversions. Um, do you have a personal thought or theory as to why that is?
I think that, yeah, I think that it's because Muslims already value dreams um, greatly and consider them to be messages from God
Hmm.
already. And that's a big part of a lot of Muslim majority cultures. And so they're actively trying to remember their dreams and in trying to interpret their dreams. And in the meantime, a lot of them have not had easy access to the truth. And I think, I think when people, I think God meets us where we're at quite a bit.
Mhm.
Uh, he met the Israelites where they were at thousands of years ago. He, um, he meets us where we're at today, and he meets Muslims where they're at today.
Mhm.
And so if they don't, when they're not, when he knows our hearts, and so I think if he knows that they're, um, uh, uh, they just don't have an opportunity to hear the gospel, and yet, um, they do value dreams and visions,
Mhm.
that he tends to be willing to give that to them. And I
Mhm.
think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's almost like if you are his, he's coming for you either way,
hmm
you know?
hmm
And, like, we see that in the story of Nabil Qureshi from
Yes.
the book Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus,
hmm
and the same thing happened to him, so I definitely recommend that book if people
Yeah.
haven't read it, but just,
Yeah.
having, doubts about the Quran placed there by the dream and the vision that he had of
hmm
Jesus or someone that he recognized to be Jesus,
Yeah.
and then seeing inconsistencies with his faith or with the teachings that he had been taught and going, "Okay, I know that what I saw was real, and so how do I reconcile that with this other thing? How do I reconcile
hmm
that?" And so, yeah,
Right.
I love just, as someone who's by and large, I would say, kind of leans cessationist, I think, it's pretty amazing to me, I don't doubt those to be real because
hmm
it's not, again, it's very different to say that God is revealing truth to someone through a dream versus God is, the canon of scripture is opened or there are apostles today or we're receiving new revelations. It's not a new
hmm
revelation, it's a revelation of reality of who he is, that he
hmm
is real, right?
hmm
So that's
hmm
again very different than saying that God has, a new word for someone.
hmm
From for instance, like a Bethel type person or
hmm
or someone with a,
hmm
hyper charismatic, movement, and so those are 2 very different things, but I think
Yeah.
it's really incredible just to see that it comforts me that God is actively engaged, and of course, we
hmm
know He is, we know that His hand is not withdrawn from history, but He is
hmm
engaged, and He is bringing people to Himself, and He is pursuing and calling those who are His to Himself, and, like, nothing can stop that, you
hmm
know?
Amen.
So,
Absolutely.
it's comforting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, man, I could ask you so many more questions. We might have to have you back another time for another conversation as this
That'd
develops,
be
but
great. That'd be
yeah,
great.
what would your final words of encouragement, be to listeners who might be fearful and might be, a little shaken up by this. I know that
Mhm.
it can be overwhelming to think about the reality, and as we think about to our kids, like
Mhm.
sometimes it just feels like more than you can bear to imagine
Mhm.
where this could go if it's not stopped. So,
Yeah.
final thoughts.
Yeah, I was given 12 weeks, I think, to teach the 20 lessons of the Islam Foundations course that I created through Women in Apologetics. And each week, maybe it was 10 weeks. It was 10 weeks. So we did 2 lessons per week. And the 10th week, I was asked who I wanted to interview. So for each week, I interviewed another Islam ministry specialist,
Mm,
whether they had been a missionary to
mhm,
Muslims, or one guy had several degrees in Islam in addition to ministering to Muslims. Another was a former Muslim. A few were former Muslims. Things like that. Um, so as I thought about who do I want to interview for the last session, the last class. And I decided to, I didn't think he was going to say yes. He did. But I decided to interview Randy Alcorn, who wrote the book Heaven,
mm, mhm,
because I was thinking, once people realize what Islam is really about, it's really scary. It is
mhm,
actually very scary.
mhm,
Even if your neighbor doesn't have the first clue what Islam
mhm,
is about, like I said, they're still going to vote for Muslims. It's a very tribal religion. They're gonna stick they're gonna vote for a radical Muslim
mhm.
almost certainly over a Christian, traditional American conservative. Or
Right.
so why on earth would people go out and share the truth with Muslims? And when it's such a scary worldview.
Mhm,
And uh what I wanted to leave people with was that our hope is not in this world, first of all. God is sovereign. We are not. What is next is by far better. The
mhm,
best is yet to come after this life for Christians. Um, if you have not taken time to study what we can know about heaven, and then maybe kind of dream about what it might be like given what we do know, uh, I want to encourage you that you cannot outdream God. If you can, anything you can dream of that's awesome and amazing and brilliant, and God, you can't outdream God. Heaven is not gonna, and the new earth are not gonna be um, a disappointment to you. And we're
mhm,
told to uh, focus on on what is unseen, not what is seen, and to be
mhm,
driven by that.
mhm,
And so I do think that setting our minds on those type of realities is really beneficial. Praying for courage, praying for opportunities, learning some of the ways to share and some of the problematic beliefs of Islam, I think gives a lot of courage and willingness to have those conversations. But I think probably the last point I'd like to make is, again, if we are not willing to risk our reputations now, our children and grandchildren will have to risk their lives in order to speak the same truth later.
yep,
And so we can risk a very little bit right now,
mhm,
being unpopular, to go out and speak the truth and stop this demonic ideology that seeks
mhm,
to take over our country and rid it of Christians and Jews. Um, or we can let the next generation deal with it at the cost of their lives. So
mhm,
um, I would encourage people to think about that, pray for courage, go out and share. And remember, right now we do still live under
mhm,
rule of law. We're in stage 1. We don't want to get to stage 2, although I think it's kind of rapidly approaching,
mhm,
of Islamic jihad. And go and speak the truth to Christians about Islam, to non-Christians,
mhm,
to your representatives in government, in your schools, in your homeschooling, and with your Muslim neighbors
Mhm.
for such a time as this.
Yeah, it's really good advice. Heard a quote on Sunday from, the man that delivered the message at church. It was a guest speaker, but he said, it was a John Piper quote, and he said, we cannot know what prayer is for until we know that life is war." And I
Right.
just loved that,
I
like,
love that.
yeah, life is war, and I think it's
Mhm,
our own American, conception that life should be comfortable and easy, and we should be well
mhm,
liked and have friends, and just we should be everybody's favorite, that makes us think that we shouldn't go and say that what's true. And often
mhm,
I you find that Christians are the hardest to convince of reality of these things. We've got this whole movement of
mhm,
progressivism and liberal theology that's
mhm,
really infiltrated our churches. And so
mhm.
now, if you say the truth, you are name called by those who claim Christ, and that's actually a lot more
It's a
difficult to
lot
come
more
up against
hurtful.
than the
Yeah,
world. It's hurtful.
yeah.
Many of us have family members and friends who will look down on us and will call us, Christian nationalist or white nationalist. I got that one this week. All kinds of
Mhm,
things that, if you don't believe that everyone has access to your country the way that heritage Americans do and should, that you are a white supremacist. And you know
mhm,
what? At the end of the day, like you said, we don't find our identity in what man says of us. We have to get eternal lenses very quickly. We have to get steel
mhm,
spines. We need to be
mhm.
bold, and we need to understand, like, do we love our lives so much that we would sacrifice our children's lives on the altar of our own? Because that
Exactly.
is what we're doing.
Yep.
And so if you I mean, it sounds intense, it sounds heavy, but we've got to get there quickly,
Mhm,
because it is here. And uh again, I think of the Lord of the Rings quote, uh, whether or not you would risk it, open war is upon you, like, you
right,
don't, it's not up to
right.
you. It's not up to you. You're
Exactly.
you're not choosing to go to war. The war is here. The war is here.
Yep.
So what are you going to do? Are you going to fight? Are you going to stand up, say what's true, or are you going to go quietly into the dark night? And you really
Right.
only have two choices. So, um,
Exactly. Very well said. Exactly.
and well, thank you for your time, Laura. And I will link your course that you mentioned on the WIA website so that people can go and learn more. I think educating ourselves about their teachings is also something we can actively do.
Mhm,
Like you said, so with anything, if we're sharing the gospel with someone, we need to know what their beliefs are that we're coming up against. We have to be
mhm.
educated, whether that's progressivism or Catholicism or any other system of belief. We have to understand what they believe in order to really share the truth with them. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I think that is a great place for people to start who feel helpless. Just take action and start learning. So, thank you for your time here today.